Today is a remarkable day as we honor some very important athletes, coaches, and supporters from our history. However, before we start down memory lane, we would like to take a moment to reflect on McKinney ISD's athletic achievements this past school year. In 2015-16, we had the McKinney North Girls track and field team win a state and regional championship. We had 7 teams in McKinney win district championships. 27 teams included regional qualifiers, and 12 teams had state qualifiers. Not only are we proud of our athletic achievements in McKinney, but we're also very proud of our academic achievements of our student athletes. We were able to celebrate 582 student athletes achieving the honor of Academic All-District and 161 achieving Academic All-State this past school year. Before you will see a picture of all student athletes continuing their education this current school year thanks to their athletic accomplishments throughout their high school careers in McKinney ISD. The reason these athletes were all able to garner the academic and athletic accomplishments they did while here is because the path was paved for them long before their time with pioneers such as those we have to celebrate before us today. To begin our celebration, please allow me to introduce our Director of Athletics, Shawn Pratt.
Good morning. Thank you for being here and to celebrate this class of 2017. Those of you who know me, like I know I like to start right on time, and I told Valerie and Jennifer when it's 11 o'clock, they're in their seats and we're starting. But you know, I was walking around the room at 11 o'clock and seeing all the special people reuniting with each other that haven't seen each other in a long time, and I told them, I said, you know, this isn't the time, just let's give it 10 more minutes here and let everybody visit and see each other that hadn't seen each other in such a long time. So we're very appreciative of everybody that made it and to come celebrate this class of honorees. Each one of our inductees today will receive this beautiful ring. And these Balfour helped design these, sat down with us and helped us design these. And I want to thank Paul and Brian Cheek from Balfour. You guys, thank y'all for being here. Thank you for supporting this program and everything you do, excuse me, in McKinney out there. Coach Hales, I think I lost your ring. You might see Balfour, see if they'll work with you on that deal. And thank you, Balfour. I appreciate you guys supporting us. So today we induct a special group into the Hall of Honor. We start with a coach who started girls athletics at McKinney High School. And she coached a lot of things, but she was a very, very special basketball coach and ended her career with 407 wins and 66 losses, an unbelievable percentage. And that's Coach Susie Hales. You bet, go ahead. Our special contributor today is Dr. John Prudich, or Doc Prudich, a man who dedicated over more than 20 years of his life to the athletes and coaches in McKinney ISD. He is a very talented orthopedic surgeon, and Doc, I would know, wouldn't I? He's cut on me 3 times. 3 of my knee surgeries are from Doc Prudich, so he's very good at what he does, and we're going to honor him today. We have athlete Shell Bollin Dailey. Shell is an all-state basketball player at McKinney High School and later had an appearance in the Final Four with the University of Texas. She's currently coaching basketball in Orlando, Florida. And I got to meet Shell when she was selected as a Distinguished Lion, and she's just very, very impressive. And she can testify to that because I've called her a couple times now and tried to recruit her back to McKinney to teach and coach. And I haven't gotten a yes yet, but I'm not done calling either, Shell. So Shell was great to come today. She actually has a basketball team playing in a tournament in Washington, D.C., so if she gets up later on and slips out, she's actually got a game to get to tonight back in Washington, D.C. So Shell, thank you. An athlete who could have been inducted as an athlete or a coach, and that's Coach Gary Hardin. You bet. Gary was an outstanding football and baseball player at McKinney High School. He was also the defensive coordinator under Coach Poe for more than 20 years. He was here when I got here. He was a great mentor to me, taught me a lot about football and a lot about coaching. Gary, we're excited that you're being inducted today. An athlete who lettered in 3 sports and led the 1998 McKinney High School girls basketball team to the state semifinals. She was one of the most competitive athletes I've ever watched play. Jamie Critchfield Peterson will be inducted today. And, you know, Jamie, we still, as we go around and intermingle with the other ADs, we get asked about you a lot. As a matter of fact, we just hired a girls basketball coach last year at McKinney Boyd, and she played at Crowley, and I guess they played y'all maybe in the quarterfinals or somewhere in there in the playoffs, and she asked immediately, well, who's that point guard y'all had in '98? So you left a very lasting impression on a lot of people, and we get asked about you a lot. An athlete, Bill Poe. Bill was one of the toughest athletes I've seen play. He was a quarterback here at McKinney High School when I got here, and then he later went to Hardin Simmons, where he had a great college career and set many passing records there at Hardin Simmons. He was my offensive coordinator at McKinney North, and then he left to go on to be a head coach. And this past season, he actually led Justin Northwest to their first ever playoff victory in the school's history. So thanks for being here, Bill. And then last is our team. Our team is the 2006 McKinney North girls soccer team. They won McKinney North's first state championship, and they had a record of 26-0 while doing it. And one of the athletes, Erin McKenna, is here today to accept that induction for that team. So as you can see, it's another outstanding class that we're inducting in 2017. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. McDaniel to come up and give us our invocation for lunch, and when he's finished, Mike Bruck, our MC, will come up and give you instructions for lunch. So thank you.
Please join me for prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for all that we've been blessed with, and in particular the opportunities that you provide for us to come together as a group of former athletes, current community members, and individuals that love not only this district but love this city and have left such a lasting impression for those that will come behind them. Lord, we just thank you for the example that they've set, and we just ask that you would bless this food that we're about to eat to the nourishment of our body. And we thank you for all that we've been blessed with in McKinney, and in particular the group of individuals that were able to make it today to this Hall of Honor ceremony. For it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
It is now my pleasure to begin the official induction of the 3rd class of the McKinney ISD Athletic Hall of Honor. Our first pair of presenters are both members of the Hall of Honor. Coach Ron Poe was the head football coach and athletic director at McKinney High School when our first inductee began her coaching career. Shell Bollin Dailey played for our first inductee, and she too became a coach. To present the 2017 Hall of Honor coach inductee, please welcome Ron Poe and Shell Bollin Dailey.
What an honor it is for me to be back and to introduce someone that I've known for a long time and began coaching with her a long time ago. I'll tell you the story, and I okayed it with Randy, her husband, before I tell this story. I was looking for an assistant football coach back in 1976. Back in '76, and Randy drove up and at the field house, the old field house over there, and applied for the job on July the 4th, '76, right, Randy? July the 4th, 1976, and I said, by the way, Randy, we're going to start a girls program. I need a girls coach. Do you know anybody? Yes, sir. My wife's right out in the car. So Susie came in, and as I remember it, Susie, and you correct me when you get up here, but I'm talking now. You wait till you get up here. So, we came in, and to make a long story short, she became the first coach for the girls program in McKinney High School. Had girls tennis, I think, before that, but we had not had the girls volleyball and basketball and track programs. And when you say, well, who were assistants? She didn't have any assistants. Susie was the coach. She began the program and all the things that go with starting a program, and did a super job. I asked Susie to send me some information about her, and I see most of it's in this little booklet here, but I'll go over some of it with you in a way of introduction to her. In basketball, She had 11 years in playoffs, 2 zone championships, 9 district championships, 2 bi-district championships, 1 regional championship, 1 final in Austin semifinals, Coach of the Year 11 times, 1986 Dallas Morning News Coach of the Year, 1986 Key to the City of McKinney, 33 wins, 2 losses in state tournament. Total overall record was 407 wins and 66 losses. I asked her to send me this. She said, I'm not sure what the loss record was, but I know it won more than I lost, so that's good. But tremendous record. In track, Susie had, from 1976 to 80, when she coached, she had 4 district championships, 3 regional championships, and 76 and 77, and in 77 and 78, runner-up at state track team championship. Held the 800-meter record in Austin 4 years, qualified 3 relay teams to state track meet from 1976 to 1979. So I'd say she was a pretty good track coach also. But had, besides doing that, she became well-known because of a couple of things. One, because she was winning a lot of ball games, but she was a speaker at the men and women's coaching school. She published in the Texas Coach magazine. Currently, Susie has a PhD from A&M Commerce, her second doctorate and diplomat of C.J. Chung Institute in Switzerland. She is an author. She has written a book. And what else good things? She's been married 43 years. This may be her greatest accomplishment to Randy Hales. Yeah, and her 2 daughters, I know she's going to introduce them, but 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. The personal thing that I want to say, and I know my time is limited and I'm about through, the personal thing I want to say about Susie is that Susie and I were cut of the same cloth as far as coaching was concerned, and we butted heads a lot of times when she was the girls' coach and I was the boys' coach, but one thing that I can tell you for sure, that I admired her. I think she is one of the finest coaches that I've ever known, if not the finest. I've always said, and I told the coaches around me, that I wish I could bring her out and let her coach our linebackers, because I know that she would be a great linebacker coach, because she's tough and she's aggressive, but also caring and loving, and I'm sure Shell will get into this, how she handled her athletes. Susie, I want to say this publicly in front of all of my friends and people here, that I respect you and I love you. Susie Hales, thank you.
I didn't know I was that tall. For some reason, I don't know, I'm walking around and everybody's like half size, but that's okay, I kept growing, that's all right. I'm here to speak on behalf of Susie as a coach. I not only call her a coach, I call her a friend, a true friend. When you start thinking about pioneer, that's Susie. When you're talking about determined, that's Susie. When you start talking about feisty, oh yeah, that's Susie. I can tell you this, I can tell you a little short story because I do follow instructions. It's my understanding that Coach has a long speech, so I just want to make sure I stay on time so she can actually do her speech. But it was really funny. I decided, well, I took it up on myself that I was going to determine when I was going to train for basketball. So I decided to sign up for home economics the first semester of school and not do volleyball and some of the other things that Coach would have liked me to do. So I was sitting in home economics and somebody started beating on the door. Dun, 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 dun. I was like, I don't know. I couldn't see her. The windows were up here and Coach was down there. So I went to the door and she says, oh, what are you doing? And I was just like, I'm in home economics, Coach. I was just like really, really excited. Like, I'm gonna learn how to cook and I'm gonna be really prepared. And she says, no, you're not. And I was just like, I'm not? She's like, no, get your stuff. I've already switched your classes. You're going to do basketball. So that was one of my really, really funny stories because nobody could see her. All we could hear was somebody like pounding at the door, but at the end of the day, it was Coach. But as I went to the University of Texas, you always try to find similarities when you start trying to look at your coaches, and you want to make sure that you made the right choice. Well, I had a good role model in front of me for about 4 years. So Jody Conrad, who's one of the most renowned coaches in America in our game, I would study her every day in comparison to this lady right here. I watched how she dealt with her athletes. I watched how she spoke with her athletes. I watched how she cared for her athletes. And Coach, I can honestly say, you cared for me, you loved me, you gave me everything that I could possibly need in order to be successful. And when I stepped on that campus, I was already prepared. And I was prepared because of you. I was prepared because that feistiness, I got it from her. That determination, I got it from her. That loyalty, I got it from her. The goal setting, I got it from her. So when you see me, you see her. Coach, thank you so much for what you've done for me, and I'll never, ever forget you. You're the warmest in my heart.
Thank you, Coach Pratt, Coach Little, Shelley and the selection committee for this honor. Thank you, Dr. McDaniel. You have a hard job. Thank you, MISD administration and school board. Thank you, Ron Poe. And yeah, he does need a little help on that story. We'll get to that later, but for giving me the chance, the privilege, Shell, to be called Coach. There's 3 words in my life. 2 of them are sweeter than Coach. One of them's honey. The other one's mama. And the third one is Coach. So thank you. Thank you to the coaches who were on my staff. You're right, that first year it was me and me. But particularly Coach Duncan. After I got through that first year, I called. We had coached at Bridgeport, and I said, you got to come help me. And we talked about it, and I don't really know whether I'm a good coach or not. What I know is that I walked into tremendous athletes. I was lucky, lucky, lucky. But I want to say thank you to Coach Duncan, who helped, who was always there, loyal. We cried, I cussed, she prayed. We gathered and we worked, and she actually ran the junior high program until I retired and then came to the high school. I want to say thank you to Coach Dickey and Coach Sessoms, Coach Womack, Coach Mosby, Coach Dailey, Coach Bollin. I want to say thank you to Mike Bruck. Where are you, Mike? Oh, right there. I mean, this guy brought energy to the gym, and he did it for years, and so I want to say thank you. Thank you to the athletes and the parents who didn't know me. Thank you for the athletes that are in this room, no matter how old you are, male or female. I want to take a moment to say thank you to some folks who aren't here. Jack Fabian. When we went up to Ron on the 4th of July, it seems to me that I got out of the car with Randall, but maybe, anyway, we both go in and he tells us that, yeah, we got a job for both of us and that he needs to talk to the SUP. Now, this is the 4th of July, and there's no school board meeting yet, but after he talked to Mr. Fabian, he came back and said, okay, you guys are hired. Monday night, they'll make it official at the school board. So we left that day, 4th of July. Both of us had jobs. Now, Randall and I had 2 beanbags, 2 dogs, 2 degrees, and we needed jobs bad. I want to say thank you to Norman Wilson. I never got a technical foul in all the years that I coached. Now, I'm not saying I didn't deserve a technical foul, but I never got a technical foul. But 1 year, Norman got one for me. 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 1 year, Norman was an avid sports writer, and he had never been around girls, and for whatever reason, he took a liking to us. And I have to tell you, much of our success was because of the publicity that Norman Wilson gave us. And so to Norman Wilson, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Dr. Charlie Wysong. You'll hear a story that I'll tell a little bit later. And I'm going to take maybe too long, Coach Pratt, but I'm going to tell what it was like to start the women's athletic program in McKinney. I want to say thank you to my daughters, Kelly and Emily. February the 16th, 30-some-odd years ago, dadgummit, we were in the playoffs. And Dr. Wysong seemed to think I needed to have that baby right then. And I told him I had a playoff game. It was my district. It was in Ennis, and that baby could wait till tomorrow. And he said that baby cannot wait. So we argued, and I lost. They let me off the school bus at the labor and delivery. And Randall and my team, Coach Duncan, and my coaches went to my district. And we didn't have cell phones back then. And you know, in all the words that they used to describe me, they didn't use one that I probably would describe me. I was pretty controlling. Because I said to Randall, every 3 minutes you go to the payphone and you call me and tell me what's going on. He said, you're in labor. I said, I don't care, I want to know. So Kelly was born. And then I have to say this about when you're a coaching family and your kids grow up, they think the yellow dog, y'all know what the yellow dog is? The kids think the yellow dog is a fancy taxi cab. So this was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years later, I had Kelly and I had Emily, and on this particular day, this was after I retired and I'd started my practice, and I kind of cared how people saw me. You know, I was a psychologist, I needed to be prim and proper. So anyway, I walk out of my session and I see the next session, and there's a little girl and there's Emily. And Emily walks over and she says, hi. And the little girl says, hey. And I think, oh no, because I've just heard this story. And before I can get around my counter, Emily's saying, hay is for horses, not for people. And if you say hay again, you're going to marry a jackass when you grow up. I thought that is not the public image that I wanted to go. But anyway, again, that's what happens when you grow up with kids in the sports arena and they travel on the school buses, both boys and girls. I think they'd had a baseball game. Surely it wasn't a basketball game. They'd had a baseball game the night before, and Emily got that story. Then there's my husband. Actually, he's the one that needs to be honored today. Thank you, Randall. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your encouragement. I do not know of another man that has more integrity than that one. That word integrity means integrated. He could take in me being mad and throwing a fit, and he could stay loyal to Ron Poe. Now that's hard. You know, I'm going to tell you a story about that after a while. You'll see. But I want to say thank you. He was in a mess from the time we started. He was a football and baseball coach, and I was bringing in the girls' program. I want to say a final thank you to the divine who brought us to McKinney and who has been in charge all along. There is no greater community than McKinney if you are an athlete and you're a coach. They love you, they support you, and they're for you. So let me again say thank you to the community of McKinney. I'm going to tell you some stories. Most of them are true. But there will be stories within a story. And the first one is, I want you to see what I have in my hand. Came out of my front yard. Y'all know what it is? Come on. It's an acorn. I'd sure hate to have y'all in class. It's an acorn. What's inside of this acorn? A seed. What else? An oak tree. Who said that? I did. You did good. You must have been here last year. But I taught kindergarten. Okay. An oak tree, it's right here. Inside of this acorn is the DNA for the oak tree. Just like inside of every human being is that spark of the holy, of the divine. This acorn had needs, just like we do as athletes, but this need was fertile ground, fertilizer, sun, and water. So it was my job to understand that I had to find some fertile ground. When we came here on the 4th of July, and we had a job that day, I remember looking at this giant of a man, Ron Poe. And I could tell he was serious about this thing called football. This is the truth. I had never seen an 11-man football game. I grew up in West Texas, and they played 6-man. 6-man. One of them was the center, and one of them was the quarterback. I don't know what the other two did, but they ran a lot. But that's what I grew up seeing. I'd always played basketball, and we had one gym, and we shared it with the boys and girls. And if, you know, there was 11 kids in my class, 2 of them were my brother and I, and when somebody got sick, we just all went together. So this being separate was kind of new to me. And I did not know that when you put the opposites of something together, if I got some chemistry teachers in here, they'll like this, that when you bring those two opposites together, it produces something far better than if it had been the same. Now, one of the things it produces is a lot of fire. And I was full of fire for the birth of McKinney Women's Athletic Program. You know, when you're 23, you don't know much. Coach Poe said, can you coach basketball? Yeah. Can you coach? I said, yes, sir. Can you coach volleyball? Yes, sir. Can you coach track? Yes, sir. Can you coach all 3 teams? Yes, sir. Was I crazy? Yes, sir. He didn't ask me that last thing, but that's how we started. And I apologize to you soccer players and swimmers. We didn't have that then. This story is a story based on one high school town with 1 gymnasium. It's a much different story today. School was to start in a couple of weeks. I was the only coach. There were no schedules. No schedules. No uniforms. No shoes. No real balls. Shell, all they had was those rubber ones that you played PE. You remember, don't you, because she was there. Those PE basketballs. That was at the high school. Then there was the junior high. I was so excited. Coach Poe told me there was 2 women over there. They would help me. Now, that's about all he said about them. And I have to be respectful, but I also have to tell you the truth. See, they know over in that corner what's about to come. When I went to meet one of these ladies, well, she was in a T-shirt and shorts and tennis shoes, and I thought, oh, that's good. And then the other one. Now, I can't see really very far away, but I don't see anybody in this room that had that big, blonde, poofy hair. And when I opened the gym door, that's all I saw was big, blonde, poofy hair. And then after I looked at her head, I looked at her hands, and I saw these 6-inch long, red, shiny fingernails. I thought she is never going to be able to catch a basketball. And then I got down to her feet. If you're a coach, you're always looking at people's feet. And I saw her feet, and her little sneakers matched her outfit. I thought, oh my, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I just had to shut my mouth and pray for a miracle. And actually what I did, I said, either one of y'all play basketball? No. Did you play volleyball? No. Did y'all run track? No, but Poofy Blonde said, I can high kick. I said, high jump? She said, no, high kick. And y'all, that's kind of a pit in your stomach story. So I left, and I thought, what are we going to do? And actually, I'm going to tell a story when I introduced Shell about this particular coach and how they got to teaching basketball. But when I left that day, I was driving home and I thought, you know, I think I could be Moses' friend. I think that when he reached the Red Sea and he said I needed a miracle, that was the first time that I thought, I need a miracle. I don't know how we're going to get this going, but I guess I'm going to have to start not only tilling this ground for this acorn, I'm going to have to do some plowing. School started. Workout. Workout in the middle of the day? What happened to 2:30? What happened to 6th period? The athletic period? Well, the boys are working out then. So the bell rings at 11:25, and I have until 12:20 during the day. And what about after school? How do we do that with one gym? I needed another miracle. I wondered, did that acorn know what was happening when it was deep in the ground and couldn't see and it was busting open? Did it know it was going to be an oak tree, or did it just think it was a mess? I had about decided I might be in a mess. The bell rang, and it was 11:25. 93 girls walked into the gymnasium. None of them had ever played anything but playground ball. But they had the magic, and they called me Coach. They were young, they were talented, they were beautiful, they were smart, and they wanted to play. Here was my miracle. It was in these kids. It was in these young women. I could see it. They were just like the acorn. It was deep in their DNA. Within their heart and minds, in their bodies, we would begin our journeys together. And we did that day in 1976. And again, they called me Coach. Somehow we made it through volleyball. You know, if you're a volleyball fan, I'm sorry. I just did the best I could do. But then October the 15th came, and for you basketball folks, that meant it's basketball. So here we were. Boy, these were great athletes. Annette was on that first team. Annette Hollinson sitting right back over there. She was one of the inductees. We had freshmen, 9th grade in varsity, so I put the freshmen in the JV, and my trainer, I put her in charge of them, and I was going to coach the varsity. And then I heard this noise. There we were practicing. I thought, what the heck is that? And I turned. Oh, that noise was the football team. I heard that giggle over there. We was in the middle of the gym floor. And all of a sudden, that giant of a man, he comes walking over there. And I look at him and I think, what is he going to say? And I don't have to wait long. I hear it. He says, you need to get off the floor. It's storming outside, lightning. These kids could get struck by lightning. We need the gym. You remember this? No, I don't remember. I knew he'd forget it. Well, I just got struck from lightning. And, you know, again, you have to remember, I'm 23 years old. I didn't have sense. I just said, can we please go in the dressing room? Had all these football coaches over here, these girl athletes, these football players, and here we were creating a perfect storm. I said, can we go in the dressing room? And he said, yeah. So we go in the dressing room, and, you know, there was a bench in that dressing room. Now, you just saw me with 6'2" shell. So I'm arguing way down here. We need the gym. So anyway, I saw this bench, and before I could think better, I got up on it so I could be eyeball to eyeball. I said to him, we have a right to work out. Because we're girls does not make us less. He said to me, you need to get off the floor. I just looked at him. And then he said, girls basketball will not pay next year's athletic budget. Football will. So I had come to my senses by that time, and I got off my bench and said, yes, sir. And I had about 15 seconds. And my mind's pretty fast some of the time, and I thought, I'm not going out there and telling those girls the boys just ran us out of the gym. So by the time I get out there, I say to the girls, you know, I've been talking to you about what it takes to be an athlete. One of the most important things is how you see yourself. So the boys are going to come in. They need to work on some stuff in here. And we're going to go in this dressing room, and we're going to talk about what it means to see ourselves as successful. And you know, we did that, and I didn't know that 30 years later I'd go halfway across the world and learn that that was called active imagination, that sports psychology called that visualization. And yet, there it was that day, in that moment. It was helpful. Now, I have to remind you, Randall is a football coach and a baseball coach. And this just happened that day. Would y'all like to go home with me that night? He was in the mess. He was in the middle. You know, and that brings me something, this little acorn, it needs fertilizer. Well, I called it another word that night. And it took me a long time to appreciate that experience. But Coach Poe, I did. Took me a long time to recognize that I had ninth grade teams and JV teams, and they weren't getting the same. And it didn't mean I saw them less. It meant we didn't have enough. I was mad at him for a long time. There was only one gym. And we all have needs. And I was learning that we have to get our needs met in a different way. So I had fertile ground, I had fertilizer, and now I had the water. The water was from my tears. A man won't do this so much, but a woman, when she feels helpless and mad, she'll cry. So we had a river running through our house. These tears were necessary and they were holy. And I want to say that to you, that for those of you who are young and you're having those dreams, you know, having setbacks and having to fight for what you want's part of life. And that's one thing that this man was teaching me. I didn't know it. But you all are going to suffer. That's a part of being human. That's not really the important part of being human. What the important part of being human is how you're going to respond to it. We made it through that season. We won the district championship. My junior high teams, all I can tell you about that is one of the coaches called me one day and she said, "What do you say to them when they just got beat 64-4? I said, "We're going to try again, and we're going to keep trying." I'm reminded of another story. This was in that same first year. We were playing South Lake Carroll. They had just won the girls' state championship the year before. Now, one of the things that I will say, and I will say it boldly, the men's staff supported me, and they supported our girls. They were there. When we were playing, they were there. This particular night, and they were kind of like buzzards, they set up really high on the bleachers, and it was about halfway in the first quarter, and this coach, this other man, calls timeout. He comes over to my huddle, and he does that. So, you know, I'm 23, I go out and meet him. And he points his finger in my face, and he says, "If you don't get number 15's butt out of my forward's belly, I'm going to put," and he had one of these rings, Coach Pratt. He said, "I'm going to put a knot on your head." I just looked at him. And looked up, where's my help? They were up there, they couldn't tell what he was saying, but they could tell who was getting a bad end of that deal. And they were all just laughing. I couldn't wait to get back to my huddle, and I said to my little guard, "Don't you let the light of day be between you and 15. She didn't, she did good. So, but I'm telling you that because, again, our stories are what make us. What do you stand up for in your life? Spring came that year. All these girls, 80 of them, we lost 13 to basketball, 80 on the first day. What do you do with 80 girls in one workout period? I said, "Who likes to run fast?" Some of them held up their hand. "Who likes to run long?" Some of them held up their hand. "Who likes to jump?" Some of them held up their hand. I said, "Okay, we're going outside, and those of you who like to run, y'all just start running. And I'm going to work with these of you who I think are going to be the sprinters." So somewhere in the middle of the workout, I decided to go over and look at these distance runners, and one of them's running barefooted. And I think, "Ooh, that's not good." So most of the kids had brought their tennis shoes from home. And I went up to her and I said, "Where are your shoes?" And she said, "I didn't want to get them messy, so I'm just running barefoot." I said, okay, you run barefoot. The next day we do the same thing, and I know I got some docs in the crowd. The next day we do the same thing. On the third day, this young lady says to me, I can't run, my legs hurt. I say, you run anyway. I've heard about all the excuses I want to hear. Later that night, I get a call from Dr. Jerry Sims. His deep, robust voice says, I need to see you in my office. I am on the school board, and I want you to know that I want to know, why are you making these girls run without shoes? Well, it took me about 10 minutes to get to his office, and I didn't care if he's on the school board or not. I'd about had it. And so I was going to tell him. So I walked right in and I said, yes, sirree, I can tell you why we don't have any track shoes, because you didn't plan for us real athletes. And with that, he quickly said, I need to let you know again, I hired you and I can fire you. I never want to hear of you running kids without shoes again. Yes, sir, I learned how to say for the second time. So I was going home. The next day we had track, and so I said, I don't care what kind of shoes you got, you run in your shoes. And this is a true story. I lead the sprinters, and I go over looking at the distance runners. And so help me, Hannah, there was this little girl about this big, and she was running the mile in her cowboy boots. That's true. So that was okay. You know, I didn't say much. And then I have to tell you this. It seemed to me that God was really trying to teach me some humility, that we had our first track meet. And I was just proud that we all had shoes by now, and we had uniforms, and that we could get everybody around the track. And the last event of the day was the mile. And this little girl, who now had track shoes on, was running the mile. And you know, at a track meet, all the track coaches get together and they talk about who's better than this and who's better than that. And I was so inflated because I had athletes like Annette and Jennifer and Shell. They were winning stuff. And so I was sitting up there talking about my girls, and the last bell for the mile, they hit it, which signals the last lap. And here comes my little girl, and she had been lapped by everybody else. And so the crowd was applauding. And, you know, out of encouragement. And when she got to right in front of us, the coaches stand, she looks at me and goes, just waving to the finish line. Now that's what it's like to start a program with kids who just want to please you. They don't know anything about what looks good, what doesn't look good. They know a lot about heart. They know a lot about tears, and we learned a lot about the sun. I call it the S-O-N instead of the S-U-N. I have to tell you this story, and to you docs, I know there's 3 or 4 of you out there. This is a true story. It probably saved my life, probably saved my coaching career, and I know it saved the life of a young woman named Tammy Walker. I was 6 months pregnant. She was a freshman on my varsity, and we were working out, and she was dogging. And I was on her from the beginning of the workout, and finally I get mad, and I say, Coach Dickey, and I throw her my whistle, and I said, get us on the baseline, and I looked at Tammy, and I said, you better beat me to the other baseline. Coach Dickey blew her whistle, and we started running. I beat her. I turned to Coach Dickey, and I said, something's wrong. Something's wrong with this kid. Called Dr. Charlie Weissong, telling him I'm bringing a kid. Something's wrong. So she did, and we did. Now, we didn't have HIPAA, we didn't have appointment, we didn't have all that stuff. I didn't have a cell phone to tell him on the way. I get to his office, I knock on the door, and I say, something bad's wrong with this kid. He listened to me, and he said, okay. So then in a few minutes, he comes back, and he said, Susie, did you run her today? And I said, well, yeah, I ran her today. We didn't work out. He said, don't even walk fast going to the car. And I looked up and I said, does she have sickle cell anemia? He said, no, it's not sickle cell anemia. Her hemoglobin should be 13 and hers is 5.6. She is starving to death. The rest of that story, that young woman got a full scholarship to Texas Tech. Her daughter's in the Olympic trials. Her son played for Alabama, not for last. She's been to the state tournament as a coach twice. But I'm telling you, we needed the community. I needed those doctors to help take care of these kids, and they did. So I will forever be grateful to Charlie Wysong. I'm going to jump over the part of the story that is about how many games I won and lost. That really didn't matter. You know, those of you who know me know that's a lie. It mattered, but it wasn't as important as what we were doing every day. I want you to hear me say today to the community of McKinney, to my fellow coaches, and especially you, Coach Poe, you have been a very important man in my life. I went to therapy soon after that little deal in the gym floor, and my therapist said, "That's an important man." I said, "I did not pay you money for you to take his side." He said, "I'm not taking his side, but you got a lot to learn in dealing with him. There's going to be a lot of men like that in your life." I had to grow up as a woman. I was a kid, 23 years old. I had to learn how to deal with powerful men, and this was a good one. It was a good one for me to learn what life was about. I had to learn to make difficult choices like you did that day in the gym. You've all made them. When you can't please everybody, you have to make a choice. And that's what he did that day. He didn't have anything against girls. I had to learn what it means to be a leader when it's hard. I had to learn to see the other person's perspective. When you're an athlete and you're competitive, you mainly just see your own. This was fertile ground. It taught me to dream dreams. It taught me to get into the arena. It taught me to fight. It taught me about respect. It taught me about love. It taught me about brokenness and about getting up in the morning and saying, well, we got beat tonight, but in 6 months we'll go after it again. So I want to say to you, McKinney people, it is important for you to know that today, you athletes that have 3 gyms, and before I finished, I had 3 gyms. And I had coaches, great coaches. I had everything a female coach would want right here in McKinney, Texas. I had great guidance from you, Coach Ron, and I thank you for that. I had great colleagues, and I cannot end today without telling this story. Coach Hodges, I'm sorry, I'm at the microphone and you're not. I get to tell the story as I remember it. It was a district ball game. The score was 50-51. There were 7 seconds on the clock. We were ahead 1 point. That was him. He's trying to distract me. Now you can feel the tension. You can see it. Man, the gym is packed. 7 seconds, and I think if we can, and they had the ball. They had the ball. I thought if we'll just man press them hard, they won't get down there in time. And so here it was, and I'm looking at that clock, and the ball came in. It was half past me, and the clock hadn't moved. And so I very gently and very quietly and lovingly said to Coach Hodges, who was sitting by me, a few chairs down, I just went over and said, Coach Hodges, would you please stop our clock? He'll tell a different story. But that is what happens when you coach with people that you love. You fight, you cry, you pray, you laugh, you grow. You watch each other have kids. You watch each other's kids dream. I have been lucky to be called coach. Thank you.
Our next presenter is one of the nation's leading specialists in sports medicine and served as physician to the U.S. delegation in 2 different Olympic Games. Presenting the Community Contributor Supporter Inductee, please welcome Dr. James Montgomery.
Well, I'm honored to be here to talk about John. Dr. Prudich and I have known each other 30 years now. I was director of the residency program here in Dallas and have had the honor to train over 200 orthopedic surgeons. Some have become friends, some are gone. I consider John a friend. But I want to talk to you about what makes a great doctor. And I want to talk about what I feel we need in medicine. And as I ran the residency program long ago, a gentleman named Jim Roach, he's an orthopedic surgeon, pediatrics. We talked about, he'd just come out of the military, and we talked about what do we want as an orthopedic surgeon. And what we want is we want somebody we can trust. Jim always talked about you want somebody on your right flank or your left flank. You want them in that foxhole. You want them to be the people you know how they'll do it. You know the way they'll do it. You know what's going to happen, and you know they're going to try their best. John Prudich, more than anybody I've trained, does that. He has a work ethic that is insurmountable. I have, as a teacher, had to stay up with the literature, and in fact have read the literature since 1910 on the knee. And I can tell you there's only 2 people in the state I feel like are reading the literature as well as I am. And I think John is doing it better than I am because he's reading all about sports. I went along about 15 years ago. I was being recruited to go back full-time at the school. And Bob Buchholz, who was the chairman at Dallas, finally looked at me and said, you know, I've trained people for 20 years. I'm now chairman of orthopedics. He said, but the only thing that really makes a difference to me at this time is did they have integrity? Now, integrity, if you look it up, is being honest, is having strong moral judgment, and being morally upright. I think there's a lot of people that we heard about already. Coach Poe, I don't know you, but I think you're one of those men. In closing, guy who won the Max Cole Leadership Award in Dallas, and I'm going to quote him, his name's Robert Fine, and I'm going to read this to you. At the core of medicine is ethics. Medicine is a moral endeavor that uses science to advance the health of patients. John Prudich, come up here.
Thank you. My son last night said this will be the first time he's ever seen me speak in public. He may find out why I'm a better doctor than a public speaker. There's obviously a lot of people to thank. I'm looking at Coach Pratt. Obviously he's one. Coach Poe is another. I came here in '87 having no clue what the future would hold. It turned out great. A couple little blips, but you get over them. Obviously the main blip, I've been married. Cindy, my wife, supports my activities with football, probably doesn't understand the desire and why I do it, but I love it. My kids, William and Harrison, put up with it for a lot of years. They accept it. Probably didn't understand why Dad was gone a lot of times on Friday nights. I'm sure Coach Pratt and Coach Poe's kids understand that, and any coach who's in here. You go back, you look at what you've done. Coach Poe, you think what we did. You, myself, and Doc Clark, we started something that continues. I think we did a good job. Coach Pratt, you continued to do that good job. It's an honor to be here today. There's a lot of people I could thank, but I'm not real happy up here. I'm nervous. So I thank everybody. It's a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful honor, and it's one of life's highlights. Thank you.
Well, you just met our next inductee, or next presenter a few minutes ago as an inductee. Now she gets to return to the podium and officially induct one of her former players as a senior class inductee. So next up, introduction of the 2017 senior class of inductees. Coach Susie Hales.
Remember that first year I talked about? Well, I was over at that junior high, and I saw this young woman that I was going to have to look up to, and I immediately recruited her. Now, her mom, who is beautiful and gracious and kind and brilliant, I don't know that her mom was so wild about basketball then, but I am so thankful to you, Mr. and Mrs. Bollin, for the daughter that you have raised. If we had parents like that, like these two, there would be no troubles in schools. But that's about parents. I want to talk about Shell. Shell's an all-state basketball player. She was the most valuable player, 7-4A. She was Greater All Dallas. She was a Texas All-Star. She was a Texas Oklahoma All-Star. She scored 49 points in one ball game. She ran the A80. She ran the 400 in the mile relay. This was a kid that had some heart. Tremendous athlete. She was Miss McKinney. She graduated. She went to the University of Texas on a full ride. Now, I had to bring up all the places that she has coached since then, but she has coached as the head coach. Her present job today is at an international program in Bradenton, Florida, where she coaches young Olympians. I think you told me 6 or 8 Olympians that you had coached. Is that correct? She was TCU's head coach before there. She was an assistant coach at the University of South Carolina. She was assistant coach in Tennessee. She was an A&M, Texas A&M assistant coach. This young woman is brilliant. She's smart. She's a great athlete. She has a great heart, and you already know Shell Bollin.
I would like to thank the committee. I would like to thank Coach Pratt. And Coach Pratt, when you called, I kind of held the phone for a while. And I know that was like, you kept asking me, are you there? I was there. I was just trying to digest and process everything. But I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and to be recognized. It means a lot when you're recognized from your hometown and people that you know and people that you're around. So I do thank you. I want to also thank my high school teammates. Darla's here. She was one of my teammates, and I do appreciate it. There are so many high school teammates that were the driving force of what you see today. Jackie Holly, she was one of them. Christy Phipps was one of them. There were so many. Jennifer Hollins, whose sister is here today. You have no idea what it was like in practice to keep up with them. And Jackie, if you know her spirit, she insisted that I run sprints and keep up with her. So it wasn't always nice. It was, you better get your butt up here. So I appreciate that, and thank you, Jackie. I also would like to recognize Norman Wilson also, just as Coach did, because of what he did was why I stand here also, because he gave us the opportunity to get the publicity out. Just like she said, I came from a small town, so not many people knew. But Norm would always write these stories which would get attention. So I do want to recognize him and thank you, even though he's not with us. I do want to recognize my family and friends, and they were probably some of the biggest fans. And just as Coach said, my mom didn't know much about basketball. My mom would come to the games with books, and she would come with the newspaper. And every time I would score, she would go, yay, good job. But now, you know, because I've been in it for a while, she actually understands it all. And for my dad to make sacrifices. I was also in Marquette's. Coach didn't like that too much. But I went to the state football championship while we had a tournament. So I played a game, got in a car. My dad drove me to Houston so I could get on top of a trash can and do a jump split in the Marquettes and get back in the car. There you go. Get back in the car and get back to that basketball game so Susie wouldn't get too mad at me. So I thank my parents for that. I always tell them I am so blessed that the stork left me at your house for so many reasons. It's not just the things that I was able to get and those types of things, but it was the love. It was along with the tough love, but it was also the encouragement that I received. So Mom and Dad, I thank you for that. But I also want you guys to understand that I stand here and I have this great life as a result because I was obedient to God. I prayed to make sure that I was in His purpose and that I was doing something that was meaningful for young women. And He blessed my life so, to where I can't even imagine. So I am a product of being in purpose and also being obedient. My entire journey is truly a dream. And I can't think of it as enough. When I first started playing, let's admit it, they're really, really nice. I was horrible. I was horrible. I don't know how many backboards I broke. But at the end of the day, I do see them and I do thank them. Coach Dickey, Coach Duncan, Coach Hales, I get it. I get it. I get it now, especially as a coach, that you have to have some divine power backing you each day in order to deal with kids. But at the end of the day, if that's your motivation, that's great. And it takes a special person to do that. And I thank you. I thank you. I know many times they would probably go in the locker room and just laugh their heads off because how many backboards I broke. But at the end of the day, I was in the locker room laughing at myself too. So it was one of those trade-offs, but I do thank them for that. I often, talk to my former players and my current players about the relationship I had with Coach Hales. And it was one that I will forever cherish. And we get on the phone periodically, and it's just like we never left. And we giggle and we talk, and I will never, ever forget that relationship, and I will cherish it forever. I just remember going in from 9th grade and going into high school, and everybody was asking, are you going to try it for the teams? And I was like, of course I'm going to try it for the teams. I heard they got a great coach. And they was like, you're crazy. You don't want to play for her. You sure you want to play for her? And I was just like, yeah, I think I do. I think I do. I think I'm going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Well, Coach, I'm glad I made that decision. But when I walked into the gym after hearing all of these stories about you, I was thinking that she was tall. Not quite. Not quite? Okay. But when I walked into the gym, there was this lady that was looking up at me and smiling. So I said, she can't be that bad. So we get into practice and we really start going, and then I saw. I saw and I felt and I saw again. But it wasn't me that made her mad, it was the other kids that made her mad. Not me. I was on her good side. But luckily, like she said, I had good parents. She would get so mad and she would take her little finger, and you saw the little finger when she was up here. She would scan it all the way around that circle, but when she got to me, somehow it went up. It went up. And all I could do was just look at her because it was locked in on my face, and I was like, yes, ma'am. Whatever you say, yes, ma'am. But Coach, I thank you for that. I also want to tell you a little story because my dear coach probably did something that was pivotal in my life. We were playing against DeSoto. I think I had 28 points or so, some rebounds, and it got down to it, and I missed the last shot that would get us on, that would progress us. Well, of course, my teammates were silent. They didn't have anything to do with me, and I was a freshman. I heard some of the grumbling, like, she makes those all the time. Why can't she make one tonight? But, that's okay. But my dear coach came over to me, and she says, wow. She said, thank you for getting us there. Now, at that particular time, it could have went either way. It could have been where she could tear me down and tell me that I should have made that shot. But Coach did the bigger thing because she knew that I was young. She knew that I wanted to please her, and she knew I wanted to improve. So she told the team it wasn't that last shot is what we did before. And again, I said the same thing. I said, wow, I have so much respect for her. And then from there, I just wanted to work even more. So Coach, I say to you, thank you, because those words were the words that did change my life. It did change my way of thinking. It did change my approach to the game because it allowed me to work harder. So I thank you for that. And we talk about that a lot. I want us also to tell Coach Hales that thank you for dreaming for me when I couldn't see what you were saying. All I had to do, Coach, was trust the process. And I trust the process. Coach would go to Austin while I was high kicking, and she would bring back all of this state champion stuff, and she would line it up in the locker, and somehow it was always around my locker. But you know, that was okay because I got the message. I got what she was trying to say to me. But I thank you for having that vision because I later saw that vision. So I thank you for that. Who would have thought this tall girl from a small town got an opportunity to play on the #1 basketball team in the nation? Who would have thought that I would become the youngest Division I head coach in women's basketball? Who would have thought that I would have the opportunity to try out for the USA basketball team? Who would have thought that I would become a head coach in the WNBA? Who would have thought that I'd be a wife, the mother of the 2 Erics here that I love so dearly? Who would have thought if you put God first, that you can see the world and that you could rise to the top of your sport and be in the same circle as the top coaches in the U.S. and in the world, but most of all, you can call them friend. It means a lot to me to be considered to think that I'm a light to someone. It's not always where you start. I was horrible. It's not always where you start, but it's where you finish. I want to have a true purpose in life, and God has given me that talent to be purposeful. So I would like to thank McKinney High School. I would like to thank the committee. I would like to thank Coach Pratt. I'll thank my family, my friends, former coaches, former players, for giving me the courage to try. Thank you.
Our next presenter is a former McKinney ISD coach, athletic administrator, and regular administrator, and is also a member of the Hall of Honor Selection Committee. And I hope we have a 5-second delay on the microphone. To present the second senior class inductee, please welcome the pride of Gonzales, Texas, Will Hodges.
Gonzales doesn't get many shout-outs, so I appreciate it, Mr. Bruck. And Susie Hales told an absolute lie in her presentation. She was up 30 with 2 minutes left, and the plug got kicked out of the clock, and she lost her mind. So you can believe whoever you choose to. Let me say this, it's an honor for me to just be on the Hall of Honor committee, to get an opportunity to read the bios and to see the accomplishments of so many fantastic athletes, many of whom I've had an opportunity to coach myself or to be on the staff or to watch on the girls' side, but some that came before I came here. It's really an honor, but it's also a huge honor for me today that Gary asked me to introduce him. I'm not old enough to say that I saw Coach Hardin play in high school or college. There's very few people in this room that are old enough to have said that. His lovely wife, Linda, the Po boys and their wives were old enough to have seen Coach Hardin play. I think they were about the same age. Coach Evans, Coach McGowan, I think they're old enough to have seen Coach Hardin play, but that's about it. And you say, well, how are you going to introduce him? I was introduced to Gary Hardin's athletic career by box. Okay, and I'm going to get to that in a second. When I started coaching at McKinney, Gary Hardin was the defensive coordinator. And I guess my third year, I got moved up to the varsity staff, and I was under the direct supervision of Gary Hardin, who's, you know, as I was the defensive end coach, so he was the defensive coordinator, so I worked for him under Coach Poe. And Gary kind of took me under his wing. And so during two-a-days, the old-fashioned two-a-days, where you worked out right when the sun come up, and then you worked out the last 2 hours of the day, and you had meetings and things like that, planned practice during the middle. Coach Poe was gracious enough to give us a couple of hours off during our 18-hour days. And so Coach Hardin would take me home to lunch, and we'd go make a sandwich, and we'd talk about the day and talk about practice, and we're there, and Gary's father, Curtis, lived with him. And so the first time I went there that I met Curtis, you know, we were introduced, and he disappeared. He just left. I didn't really think anything about it. About 5 minutes later, he comes back, and he's carrying a box. And Gary gets real embarrassed and said, "Dad, don't do that. You're embarrassing me." And Gary is truly a humble person. I've already been around him for 2 years, and I didn't know, I knew he played at McKinney, but I didn't know what kind of career he had. Curtis was adamant that I see the box and see what was in the box. Like all proud parents. Miss Betty, do you have a box or a scrapbook on each one of those boys? Yes, all parents do. So I open the box, and I start looking in the box. And it doesn't take me long to figure out that Gary's box is different than my box. A lot different. The headlines are about being elected captain 6 times in his high school career over 3 different sports. Headlines are being all-district, first-team all-district 6 times over 3 sports. The headlines say Hardin pitches no-hitter. Hardin pitches no-hitter again. Hardin pitches perfect game. If you're not a baseball guy or gal, a perfect game is a no-hitter, but you also don't give up any walks, and your iron-fisted third baseman doesn't make an error. Nobody gets on base at all. There's 21 outs in a high school baseball game, and Gary averaged his senior season striking out 12 and a half batters. I don't know how you get to the half, but I think that's an average thing. Which means your fielders only have to make 9 outs a game. Gary was the first-team all-district quarterback his senior year, and you could argue that football was his worst sport. Well, I coached for a lot of years, and I've been around the game a lot. And you always take one of your very best players to be the quarterback. And so he's the quarterback, but it's his third best sport. He led the team, McKinney High, for 2 years in scoring as a shooting guard in basketball, making all-district. And that was his second best sport. But baseball, I already told you, he's got no hitters, he's got perfect games. He hit over 400 as a junior. He makes All-State. He's drafted. Now, I alluded to earlier that this was a long time ago, but he was drafted by Kansas City, not the Royals. It was the Kansas City A's. Yeah, they hadn't even moved to Oakland yet, so it's been a while. But and I asked Gary one time, "You didn't sign with Kansas City?" And he said, "No." I said, "Why not?" "Why'd you go to college?" He signed a scholarship with TCU to pitch for TCU. So why'd you decide to go to TCU instead of sign with Kansas City? He said, "My dad had to drop out of school early to work to help provide for his family. And he was determined that I was going to get an education. He said to me, you know, what if you get hurt? You sign with Kansas City and you get hurt in a year or 2. Well, show you how things work out. Gary pitched for TCU. One of the next clippings I run across of is, and it's from the McKinney Courier Gazette, it says, Hardin pitches Frogs win Southwest Conference title. Okay, so that's 1967. That's his sophomore year. But Gary had developed an arm injury that year, a little arm discomfort, throwing the amount of pitches I guess he threw, during his career caused it. So effectively, his career has ended his sophomore year, which shows you how prophetic Curtis was and what a good son Gary was, because he told me, if it wouldn't have been for my dad, I would have signed. I would have gone to pro baseball. The one thing I got from looking at Gary's box, and as I was preparing to do this talk today, is that we live today in an age of specialization. Select this and AU that, and well, I'm only going to play one sport. In fact, my own son even did it. And this is in a time where your best players played everything. They played football during football season. They played basketball during basketball season. And they played baseball during baseball season. I asked Gary about that. He said, that's the way I grew up. We had an empty lot, either behind his house or next to his house. And during football season, we played football. During basketball season, we shot baskets. During baseball season, we played baseball. And he said, my neighborhood, Mike James, who was in the inaugural class of the McKinney Hall of Honor, was in my neighborhood. The two Justice boys were in my neighborhood. They were good high school athletes. And so this is what we did. And it allowed him that broad level of experience to be exceptional in everything. I also want to say that Gary, Gary's been inducted as a player, and with the stats that deserve to be inducted as a player. But either Coach Pratt or Mr. Bruck mentioned that Gary had been coaching for a while. Gary's just finishing up his 47th year in the business. After stints at Garland ISD and Sherman, he came home to McKinney ISD in 1978. He was Coach Poe's defensive coordinator for 22 years. Then he went to become the golf coach at McKinney North and follow his current passion for athletics, and that's playing golf, teeing them up. Along the way, he's mentored hundreds of high school athletes. And as Coach Pratt already mentioned, scores of coaches like Coach Pratt, like myself, who worked on his side of the ball on our staff in McKinney. Gary's been a role model for a lot of coaches, but not just in coaching, but as a husband and father. Gary's been married to his wife, Linda, for 50 years. Gary and Linda have 3 children. I was fortunate enough to be around when they were in high school. Gary Sr. was starting center a couple of years when I was a younger coach. Then to Trace, one of our cheerleaders. I still have notes that I've written to get Trace out of trouble for missing Myra Smith's English class first period. And then Jeffrey. Jeffrey was a quarterback, and as a junior, he played defensive end for me. Probably would have been good if somebody was going to tell me that Jeffrey was going to go into youth ministry before he was played in my position group. That probably would have been a good idea. But great kids, great family. A very impressive athletic career. When you look in his box and you read the headlines, you're wowed. But just as impressive career as a coach and life as a husband and father. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Hardin.
Will hardly left me with anything to say. I mean, what do you say about that? I want to thank Will for that fine introduction, very flattering. You can take statistics and make them say anything you want to, I guess. Will has been a good friend over the years. Like he said, we've coached together and he was an excellent coach for me on the defensive side of the ball. And after a few years of that, they needed an offensive line coach, and he moved over to the offensive side of the ball and was equally as excellent there. And we set some numbers throwing the ball with him as the offensive line coach that McKinney may never see again. First of all, I'd like to thank the other inductees. I was very fortunate, being a coach in McKinney, I got to see most of these, the inductees perform, either playing, coaching, or giving medical attention, as in the case of Dr. Prudich and the many hours that he donated to that. So I was very privileged to get to see these people perform, and it's humbling to be numbered with them. I would like to take just a few minutes to recognize and thank. I'm kind of like Dr. Prudich. I'm not as comfortable being up here as I am on the sidelines drawing on a chalkboard or throwing a baseball. But I think that we owe it to to recognize and give thanks to those people that may have influenced our lives. And I would like to do that this time. I've got several groups that I'd like to mention. First of all, my parents. Will talked about Curtis and the things that he did. I was an only child, so I was really, the only thing they had. And just the support that they gave me, first of all, in athletics, from the time I can remember, I had some type of a ball as a toy, football, basketball, baseball, from the time I was very small. And my dad saw to it that I was out playing ball just about all the time. My mother, responsible for the scrapbook, she was a newspaper clipper. She clipped not just things about me, but news articles and kept them around. She saved papers from the Kennedy assassination and other things like that. But she kept every clipping from every team that I was on and put them in the scrapbook. I didn't even know about some of those things because when you're in high school, you really don't think about that. Statistics weren't as big then. We were just interested in playing and the team success, and so when you played for fun, but I didn't even know about some of that stuff. But they had saved that scrapbook, and we moved around, of course. Well, finally, when my mom passed away, my dad moved in with us, he brought the scrapbook over and gave it to us. It's a wonder that I've saved it after all those years, but I'm truly appreciative of them. My dad also, like I said, would play ball with us. He would get out in the yard and play. My mom would be there too, and he would see to it that I was out playing ball. So I owe them a great debt of gratitude. Another person that I owe a great debt of gratitude to is Norman Scott, who was a sports writer for the local paper when I was growing up, and he did just a fabulous job, and it wasn't not because he wrote articles about me. He covered every sport in the school while holding down a full-time job at another place. He also covered the smaller towns around McKinney that didn't have a paper, and those kids didn't get recognized. He put it in the McKinney paper. And so I owe him a great deal of gratitude for the things. He kept detailed statistics. When back that time, not many people did, but that's where we got a lot of the stats. I didn't remember some of that stuff, but he had it, detailed statistics, yards per game and all that, number of points per game, and all that sort of stuff that we didn't think anything about back then. So owe him a debt of gratitude also. The next group I'd like to thank, Will mentioned this, and I'll just briefly mention it. The neighborhood that I grew up in, very fortunate to have many kids, good athletes there, and as Will mentioned, heck, I wasn't even the best athlete in my neighborhood. Mike James lived 6 houses down, and we were always playing. We had a big backyard, and it was a football field in the fall. My dad helped me lay out a basketball court. We had a full-size basketball court, it was 90 feet long, goal on each end. So we played basketball in the spring or the winter and spring, and then of course there's a baseball field in the summer. That's really where I learned to throw and kick a football, tackle, It's where I learned to shoot a basketball. It's where I learned to throw and hit a baseball. Those skills were honed every day of the year. If it wasn't snowing or raining or cold, we were out playing some type of sport. And I'm sure many of you did the same things. I don't think kids do that as much nowadays. As you know, I'm a golf coach now, and I get a lot of beginning golfers. And in teaching them the swing of golf, the baseball swing is similar. There are some similarities. You swing up higher with the baseball, of course, and so I'll be trying to teach them the basics of the swing of golf. And I said, okay, it's kind of like swinging a baseball bat. You've played baseball, haven't you? And they'll say, no, sir. And I'll say, well, have you ever swung a bat? No, sir. And you'd be surprised how many times I get that answer from prospective golfers. And so I don't think kids play on their own as much as we used to. Next group I'd like to mention are some of the teammates that I had growing up. I was fortunate. They said that our group was one of the best groups to ever come through McKinney. They predicted great things for us. It didn't quite happen as great as they predicted, but we were pretty good. When I was selected to receive this honor, I received calls from many of my teammates congratulating me and staying in touch. Nobody does anything great in football or basketball or baseball without the help of your teammates. Somebody has to throw you the ball, or somebody has to catch the ball when you throw it. Somebody has to block. Somebody has to field the grounders that they hit when they're behind you. And so I was blessed with good teammates, and I'm just thankful for them. Growing up in the community of McKinney, was very fortunate. McKinney put a premium on athletics, and I remember I coached for Coach Poe for several years, as you heard. Coach Poe had a meeting at the beginning of each football season with all the coaches, young and old alike, and he always made this statement, and it really stuck with me. He said, in McKinney, the word coach means something. In McKinney, the word coach means something, and it did. Somebody back there, along about the mid-50s, and it was Joe Simpson's who it was, came here. McKinney had fallen on some hard times in the past, but Joe Simpson came, and from that point on, they started a program of excellence in character, work habits, and all the other things, and the people respected the coaches in McKinney. And Coach Poe, that was his way of saying, hey, somebody laid the groundwork for coaches being respected in McKinney. We need to keep that alive. And it has until this day. We're very fortunate in McKinney to play for good coaches and assistants and so forth. Some of the great coaches that I had, I'd like to mention a few of the coaches. I can't mention every one of them, but there were a few. Not many people can say that they had Jim Hess as their 9th grade coach. Jim Hess, a well-respected coach throughout the nation, really. He won a state championship in high school. He went to San Angelo State and won a national championship. He worked for the Cowboys for several years. He was my 9th grade coach. So he really started us off the right way, but doing things the right way, working, hard-working, and just excellence in every way. I played also for Charlie Qualls, was the head coach when I was on the varsity. Tommy Hudspeth became the head coach my senior year, another excellent man. I also played basketball for Scott Johnson. All excellent men, excellent character, good role models, and so I was very fortunate to play with them. And not only in school athletics. My dad, like I said, was my Little League coach, and he was excellent. He let us play the game and enjoy the game. I played for Al Alford, who coached American Legion baseball, and those of you that know Al know what a passion he had for baseball. And some of the things he did to help us, he would not schedule the easier teams. He would schedule some of the best amateur teams in the state, and so it let me know what I was going to have to do if I was going to be successful later on in college and so forth. As I coached in McKinney also, after I finished playing and began coaching and came to McKinney, there were some coaches in McKinney that had tremendous influence on my life. Ronnie Tips, Will Hodges, Jerry Crumpton, Brandy Hales, Shawn Pratt, all of these men I coached with and learned from, and they were excellent in what they did. We're very fortunate to have those people. And then, of course, there's Coach Poe, one of the men that I admire more than anybody else around. Why he hired me at McKinney, I'll never know. I know for a fact that when I applied for the job, there were 2 or 3 people that had a better resume than I did. And what he saw and why he hired me, I don't know. But he allowed me to coach, to grow as a coach. When I came to McKinney, I thought that I knew a little football, but I found out I had a lot to learn. And he taught me how to teach, how to motivate kids, one of the best ever at that, dealing with coaches, dealing with parents, one of the best ever. Really a mentor to me, and I appreciate him for that. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, I must mention my family. My wife, Linda, 50 years. She shares equally in this honor with me. The things that she did in raising the kids and supporting me, coming to every football game, banquets and so forth. When I got the golf job, we have golf banquets now. When I got the golf job, she had come to every banquet I'd ever had. When I got the golf job, I said, Linda, we're going to have a golf banquet, but I'm going to release you from going to that. So I let her out of the golf banquets, although she has gone to a few with me. But she attended every banquet, and that's what family is. She shares equally in this with me. I would be lying if I said that this honor, being selected to the Hall of Honor, was not one of the great accomplishments in my life. But I must say that for Linda and I, the greatest accomplishment is the family that we've raised and the 3 kids that we have and our grandchildren. So thankful for them. And that's the greatest thing that I have, to be surrounded with a family of support. They're always respectful to their parents, and they give us support. The entire family does that. My sister-in-law, Linda's sister, came all the way from Minnesota just to come to this ceremony. And I'm just so thankful for the family that I have and the support that they give us. In closing, I would like to accept this honor on behalf of all those forgotten McKinney athletes. McKinney, I've got several old newspaper articles, and I've researched this a little bit. McKinney participated in athletics as far back as 1910. Can you imagine how many athletes there's been come through McKinney since that time? And most of them will be forgotten because they've either passed on, moved off, or whatever. But there were some great athletes there, and I'd like to accept this honor on behalf of those forgotten McKinney athletes who will never be recognized because their records are lost or gone. But they laid the groundwork for the rest of us as we participate in McKinney. And just in closing, I'd like to thank Shawn and the committee for the great job they do in this Hall of Honor. It's one of the greatest things McKinney's ever done, to recognize those people and keep their memory alive for those who played in McKinney. Thank you very much.
Next up for induction are the athletes from the modern era. Our next pair of presenters represent a special legacy in the history of McKinney High School girls athletics. For the first modern era induction, please welcome former coach Glenna Duncan.
Wow, I feel like I'm at a family reunion, actually. It's wonderful, and I'll tell you just how family it is. As Shawn was introducing some of the dignitaries that are here, he introduced Jay Gaskell. I didn't realize she was the principal at McKinney High School. Her father just happened to be my high school basketball coach. And I can attribute everything I know to him. I loved him. So it is truly a family reunion. Well, I have to tell a little story before I get into my spiel about Susie, Shell, and Jamie. They do have some things in common here. When I saw Jamie and Shell in August when they came to the football game, first thing I said, I want to see your pinky fingers. And I looked at their pinky fingers, and they were both not quite straight. They both had a little crook to them. How did it happen? In practice, Shell, we were practicing for a by-district game, I think it was. We were practicing, and all of a sudden, Susie said, "Shell, what's wrong with you?" Susie turned around, held her finger out, and it was this direction. And Susie came over there in Susie style, took her hand and went, "Get back to practice." And she got back to practice. When we were playing in the state playoff game with Jamie in '98, Jamie came to the bench, and we knew something. We'd call timeout. Something was it was just off on the court. We called timeout. I said, "Jamie, what's wrong with you?" She held her finger up, and it was to the side. I didn't do as Susie. I said, "Doc Clark, please fix this now." And he taped it up in the huddle, and Jamie went right back out and played for us. So that's my two stories with that. Every year when we have this honor banquet to honor the athletes and the coaches and the contributors, I have thought to myself, you just can't name a group more deserving to represent McKinney. And this year is no exception. These honor recipients make McKinney High School, McKinney Athletics, and the city of McKinney proud as representatives. I myself feel very humbled to be among such extraordinary individuals. They are truly the ties that bind the foundation of McKinney Athletics. Our next honor athlete is one of the most versatile athletes I've ever coached, and to be called a Lionette. She is one of those amazing athletes that coaches have the privilege of just coaching just once in a while. Jamie was a standout as a 7th and 8th grader. Coach Sessoms would say, "Coach, she can dribble, she can pass, she can see down the court, and she can even shoot the ball." And when she came to the high school as a freshman, I can say she could do all of that and more. Jamie had that just sixth sense about her. That's not taught, it was just in her. One of the first games as a freshman, I remember we were playing Coppell, one of our biggest rivals. Game was back and forth, back and forth. Fourth quarter, clock was ticking down. Jamie stepped behind the three-point line and popped a three. The buzzer went off, and we won the game. Coach Yuri and I looked at each other and we said, "That's a freshman." And we were excited. At mid-court after the game, the Coppell coach met me and said, "Coach Duncan, I want to see her birth certificate. I don't think she's old enough to play." And I just laughed. Jamie was a little bundle, but she could produce big results. Her energy, her skill set made everyone around her better. Her command as Lionette's point guard for 4 years was undisputed. Very few teams tried to press us her senior year. If they did, we were scoring on the other end of the court. Jamie could not only handle the ball, but she could deliver it under pressure in any situation. One of her teammates had this to say about her. Said, "As a player, I don't think I fully realized the magnitude of what kind of teammate Jamie was until I became a coach. Jamie was the point guard. She was the captain of our team. She led by skill, confidence, and a reassurance that anything was possible. Jamie was hard on herself, though, but she never criticized others. I never once heard her say anything negative. That is how I remember Jamie, by her example." Teammate Hope Adams. Jamie's natural gift of athleticism, agility, intelligence, competitiveness, unselfishness, and knowledge of the game and eye for the basket made her a threat any place on the court. Her determination to excel in all areas led her to spend hours, as I know all these other athletes did, perfecting their craft. And I'm sure her mom and dad rebounded a lot of basketballs and became proficient at that and passing the ball back to Jamie. As a leader, Jamie was a spark plug for our team, both in practice and games. She was always self-motivated. Jamie possessed a positive can-do attitude, leading our team into the playoffs her senior year and to the state tournament. Coach Yuri would say, Jamie accepted every challenge with competitive attitude and a respect for all opponents, one of the very best. Jamie also excelled in cross-country, softball, and volleyball, leading her teams into the playoffs in those sports. Jamie did not limit herself just to sports. Her talents also included concert choir, National Honor Society, selected by her peers as homecoming queen, and Miss McKinney High School. Remember the little rule, no pass, no play? Coach Duncan always slept really good because Jamie was ranked 4th in her graduating class. Her team academically had an A average when she was a senior. So that's an exciting thing to have if you're a coach. Jamie even had her own fan club. One of the little girls that came to every game struggled with her schoolwork. Jamie found out about this and decided to help by becoming her own personal tutor. Years later, this same little girl would say, as an adult, of this experience, Jamie always incorporated basketball into my learning. We would play basketball outside while doing my schoolwork. It made all the difference to me. As you can see, Jamie was driven to succeed in all areas, on and off the court. She was a big part of the heartbeat of McKinney High School. A few of her athletic awards include All-District First Team Basketball, Softball, and Volleyball, All-Region Basketball, All-State Basketball, Second Team All-State Softball. After Jamie graduated from high school, she took her talents to Ricks College in Idaho. There she earned Honorable Mention All-American and was academic All-American honors for basketball and softball. When she was a sophomore, she transferred to Weber State University in Ogden, Utah. There she led her team to its first ever berth into the NCAA tournament. She was always a leader in assist and free throw percentage. From that point, she attended the University of Texas Law School and graduated with honors. Somewhere in between, Jamie met her husband, Adam, and they have been married for 16 years, have a family of 4 girls and 1 boy. Today, besides being a wife and mom, she has a law practice in Austin, a photography business as a hobby. Is she still sports-minded? To date, she has run 2 Boston marathons, appeared on America's Ninja Warrior last season, with a goal of competing again this next season. I know you're wondering, Jamie, just let me hear your schedule. I want to know what a day in your life is like. Well, you know, I asked her that, and then she went and she started listing what all she did. But the most important thing she listed was the very last thing. She said, Coach, at night when I tuck my kids into bed, I have them tell me 5 things that they're thankful for. I can tell you undoubtedly that I am thankful for one good kid, Jamie Critchfield.
I'm truly honored to be here. It's very humbling. This is an amazing crowd of people to be inducted with, and I'm very humbled. Thank you, Coach, for your kind words. I'm just so blessed to have grown up in McKinney, Texas. My family moved here when I was 11, and I thought my parents had ruined my life. I just thought, what is this strange place? And then we get into school, and my 6th grade teacher freaks out because I don't want to try out for cheerleading. And I just thought, what are these people's priorities here in McKinney, Texas? Because it is not sports, and that's what I want to do, is play sports. And then, you know, I skipped out on the cheerleading, which I'm sure would have been fun, but I'm so glad I didn't. I showed up in high school, and Coach mentioned that I was a little bundle. Notice she didn't say a bundle of what. I was small. I was like barely 5 feet, 95 pounds, tiny little freshman girl, but I had big dreams and big aspirations. And I'll be forever grateful to Coach Duncan and Yuri and all of the McKinney coaches for recognizing the potential that was there and the drive that was there. It's been just a major, major blessing in my life. So, as Coach mentioned, I was on varsity basketball, and we'll talk mostly about that. They went ahead and put me on varsity as a freshman. And of course, what came with that was not always fun. We had lots of early morning practices, lots of running. We had road trips that culminated in outings to McDonald's or Grandy's, the fancy dining places that we all love. We had many, many sweet moments of victory, and also, of course, some defeats, luckily not as many as defeats. And lots of foot stomping and cheering, things that I learned. These are skills that I did not have before I played basketball, and I don't know if I even still have them. One of my favorite cheers that the girls taught us was, and you can tell me if they still do this one, "We are the Lionettes, straight out of McKinney." Do they do that one? Oh, and when we beat you, we defeat you by many. You shake and shiver when we all walk in, and then the singers would be like, "Hey, hey." And then this is my favorite line, "We kick your tail and we leave with your men." And as you can imagine, I did not make that up. I probably didn't even get what it meant back then. But those are some fun memories that are ingrained in my head coming out of McKinney. And of course, best of all was the exposure to the amazing people that I grew up with. The teachers here are phenomenal. Mike Bruck was one of mine, and many others. They were so supportive and treated you with respect and kindness and enthusiasm, wanted us to succeed in all aspects of life. I had my teammates. As mentioned, this was by no means a one-man show. We had an exceptional level of athleticism coming out of the class that I was in and the subsequent classes. Many of us went on to play some sort of college-level sport. I want to thank those players for pushing me to be my best. They made me want to be a better player and a better person off the court. At our 10-year reunion, I was riding in the car afterwards with some of my teammates, and I was the designated driver. And one of the girls commented, she was like, "Hey, this is just like in high school when I told my mom I was out with Jamie Critchfield, but this time I'm really out with Jamie Critchfield." But I was held to that standard, and I really appreciated that I guess you would call it a compliment. And I'm so grateful that I've gotten to keep in touch with so many of them now through social media, and also just developed lifelong friendships there. Coaches, you guys have been more than just coaches to me. You have been role models. Coach Duncan, I just can't thank you enough for your enthusiasm, your energy, your good sense of humor, and I admire so much your balance in life between family and everything else you have going on. Coach Yuri, your passion, your loyalty, your work ethic, those are things that have just been ingrained in me and have stuck with me and helped me realize, the talents that I need to develop as I'm growing older. And then Coach Sessom, I'm going to include Mike in this too, lefty. I just admire so much your resilience, your faith in God, and just the happy smile and peace that you carry about you. All of those qualities I admire so much. And of course, I had so many other coaches who made such a difference in my life. And they were MHS coaches, they were club sports coaches, they were all over the place, but they were wonderful, and I'm so grateful to them. I need to also thank my siblings. Jared, my brother Jared's here. I also have Cameron, Colby, Kevin, and Amy, so this big family thing is sort of genetic, I guess. All of them put up with me being consumed by my own schedule and my own life, and my parents, who were often distracted running me around. They've always shown me nothing but love and support, and I'm so thankful for them. And then, of course, that brings me to my parents, who have sacrificed so much for me to be able to do these things that I've been able to do in my life. When I was in high school, my parents were raising 6 kids. As you can imagine, that's not an inexpensive feat, and especially when one of them is on 2 club sports teams and traveling the country playing. So they took on a Dallas Morning News paper route in the morning specifically to pay for my sports. And At the time, I didn't understand the magnitude of that selflessness, and I don't think I appreciated it like I did. It was well into my adulthood when I was looking back, and I thought they truly gave everything for me to be able to succeed. And so, Mom and Dad, thank you so much. Dad did all the rebounding. Don't let my mom take the credit. Thank you for rebounding me. Thank you for working so hard to provide for our family. Thank you for being such a stable, constant support in my life. I love you a lot. Mom, I'll tell you a story about my mom. Where to begin, right? When I was in kindergarten, we had centers where you do like a little skills. And as you like figure out how to do that skill, you get to pass that off and move on to the next skill. So I came home one day and she asked me what center I was on, and I told her, and she said, well, is anybody else ahead of you? And I said, yeah, one person. And she said, well, why? And I should have been the first. But that attitude instilled in me this desire to never settle for anything less than my best. And so, Mom, thank you for teaching me that. Thank you for being a passionate fan who often got kicked out of games on my behalf. And no, I shouldn't say often, maybe just a half a dozen times. And thank you for teaching me what I consider to be the most important lesson in life, which is that these things are wonderful, but the most important thing in life is people, and loving people, and treating people well. So thank you, Mom. I love you. And then it's on to my wonderful husband. When I was a teenager, I was given some wise advice, and I was told to find a man who would be able to love me and support me despite all of my accomplishments and all of my ambitions. And I didn't really realize at the time how profound that was, but now that I have been married to Adam for almost 17 years, I have to say I found the perfect person for me. Thank you for loving me and supporting me and chasing me around the country literally while I pursue all these endeavors. I just can't say thank you enough, and I love you. And thank you for being such a good dad to our kids. Ocean and Eden, those are my two oldest who are here. I've got Haven, Azure, and Legend. They're off with a friend because there's no way they would behave during this thing. Thank you, girls, for loving me and for being such good daughters. You're wonderful. And last, of course, I have to say thank you to my God for blessing me with a family, with talents, with the community, and for leading my parents to McKinney. I would not have had the life I had had if we had stayed where we lived before. So I'm so grateful for him and his plan, and for the opportunities that we all have to become better people and to develop our abilities. So thank you very much.
Our next presenter is returning to the podium once again, but this time he gets the honor of officially presenting a member of his family as a modern era inductee. Please welcome again, Coach Ron Poe.
Thank you, Mike, and it is an honor for me today to introduce a member of my family, and I know it's getting long and we're getting restless a little bit, and I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but what an honor for me to introduce my Betty's baby boy, Bill, to you today. I told her I would say that. Bill is the youngest of 3 sons and the youngest of 4 children. Older sister Cindy and 2 brothers. Bill made his mark in McKinney High School as an athlete, basically in football, but also in baseball. I think the highest compliment that can come to a dad during the course of one of your kids coming up for an old, as Susie described me earlier, cantankerous old guy that thought he was pretty tough, was that the coaches that coached Bill had one statement about him, and Shawn's already said this: toughest kid I've ever seen. Toughest football player that's ever played. So Bill played with toughness. There's a little bit about Bill that you need to know. He won't tell you, but I will. Bill was born with a handicap. Bill is deaf. He was told when he was 2.5 years old that he'd never go to public school. He went to Deaf Ed Center and Calgary Center in Dallas from the time he was 2 years old till time to go to school in the Richardson Deaf Ed program. Was told at that time, well, I don't think he needs to be in public school. We were advised at one time to send him off to a Deaf Ed school. His mama said, no, we will not. And he started school in the first grade in McKinney Independent School District, a great school district, Doctor, a great school district. That he finished his senior year, and I believe, Bill, you did make 1C, right? Made good grades, went off to college, and I'll get to his athletics later, but got a degree at Hardin Simmons University in computer science and physical education. The little boy that couldn't do it, that can't hear, that can't do it, he's turned into this. Thank you. 2 of his teachers here, there's a lot of people along the way that helped Bill, and 2 of them showed up today. Were Vicki and Marcia. Vicki Cooper and Marcia Couch took him in his informative years, one when he was little, and the other one picked him up in high school, and without those 2 ladies, he wouldn't have made it. But enough for that. But Bill was a pretty good athlete. At quarterback, he started from his junior year and his senior year, carried us to the playoffs both years. It was all district, I think, Bill, all state. I don't remember. I do know about college. I went and watched him play at Hardin Simmons University. I was still coaching at the time when he was at Hardin, when he went to Hardin Simmons, and coaches always work on Saturdays during the football season because we break down film from the last time, we get things ready for the next time. So at that time I was having my coaches in at 7. I came in at 5 in the morning, got my part of the watching the film and grading it over with, and they came in at 7, they took over, and I went and watched Bill play ball at Hardin Simmons during his years. But very, very good time at Hardin Simmons University. He started some as a freshman, some as a sophomore, all the time as a junior and a senior. Was all conference both years. His junior and senior year, he was All-American and was most valuable player of the conference his senior year. Won 3 conference championships with him at quarterback. Set the passing record for a short kid with short fingers. Pretty good. With the little fingers was pretty good, but he set the conference. Now, this is the same kid that was told when he was little, you can't do it. You can't hear. Well, you know what? His 2 brothers and sister didn't believe that. They treated him and roughed him up enough that he was competitive. He made him competitive. So, Bill Poe, congratulations to being inducted into this, and I want him to tell his story, but I wanted to share that because Bill won't share that with you. I don't know that he's ever shared it with anybody, but it's been a struggle. It's hard sometimes, but he's done it, and what a man. Here is Betty Poe's baby boy, Bill.
Got a couple things. First of all, really honestly, Dad, you just took up about half of my speech, so it's going to be a short time. We'll be in and out of here pretty quick. But first of all, again, just want to say thank you to Coach Pratt, Coach Little, our entire athletic department for putting together this special event, McKinney ISD, Board of Trustees, all those people involved. As the rest of the induction class, congratulations to y'all as well. As I listen and as I sit through this banquet, just listening, I kind of thought there for a while, why am I here, especially with that group and class of people that spoke and came up before me. But most definitely, it's extremely honored to be a part of this induction class. It's great pride that I stand here before you today. It's a tremendous and unbelievable honor. Can't imagine being here. There was several years ago, I guess 2 years ago, as a matter of fact, in the introductory class that my father was inducted into this Hall of Honor was something that was very unique, and especially to see that our dad is a part of that class, and for us to, or for me to be sitting out in that banquet 2 years ago to feel like or know that I was a part of that legacy and him being introduced is something that I knew was remarkable. And for me to now be before you up on the stage is dreamlike. It is completely surreal. Never thought that this would be an opportunity that I'd be able to have. Being McKinney line, growing up in McKinney, Texas as a coach's kid is very uncommon. My own kids can attest to this. It's uncommon for coaches' kids to be born and raised in one place. Was very fortunate that I was able to be born and raised here in McKinney, Texas, and be a McKinney line, and looking forward to the days that when I grew up, one of my most vivid memories as a young boy, you know, from the ages probably 3 till 13, was to be able to see all the older guys that came through before me on Friday nights wearing that gold hat with that blue M on the side of that helmet. That was something very, 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 very special to me. By the way, Jamie, thank you for kind of breaking up a little bit. I didn't want to be the only crybaby up here. But on Friday nights, again, you know, just looking forward to those opportunities was something that I dreamed about on a daily basis. Being able to run around in the field house and interact with all the players that came through were some of the fondest memories that I had. Going through the old field house over at the stadium, going through the new field house and interacting with all those players, and each one of those guys, for the most part, took me in. They knew who I was. They knew that I was Coach Poe's son, but they took me in, and they loved me just as much as I loved them. You know, growing up and definitely idolizing the days that I'd be able to put on that gold hat, but eventually being able to do so was something that I've definitely cherished for all of my life. Is being able to wear that gold hat with the blue M on the side and being able to play with the teammates that I was able to play with. Again, mentioned earlier that I was born and raised here in the town of McKinney, and being able to play with the majority of guys that I grew up with was very phenomenal. You know, all of the accolades and everything that we talk about me as a player in McKinney was something that is shared, something with my teammates, something that I could not have been able to accomplish without those guys. And so most importantly is that, and I know not any here today, but I would hope that they know that my success is a part of their success as well. My father mentioned it earlier, and he's just right. I don't like to talk about myself, and I don't like to say things about that I've had to grow up and learn to overcome, if you will. He mentioned it earlier. You know, roughly, I have it down in my notes, and roughly 38 years ago, just like Dad said, about 2.5 years old, my parents were told that I was hearing impaired or profoundly deaf. And again, the communication that was to them was that I would never be able to attend public schools. I would never be able to participate in regular athletics. And as we all know, that didn't happen, and they even was advised for me to go to deaf school. And Dad mentioned that earlier, but I did want to bring that up, and I had planned to bring that up. And the reason that I wanted to bring that up is the fact that I did play at a high level. I competed at a high level, not only in high school, but also in college. Was able to get through first grade all the way through basically senior high school, and graduated and went to college, graduated from there, and also receiving a master's level education. And the reason I wanted to say all that, and again, Dad kind of beat me to the punch on it, but the reason I wanted to say that is that I wanted everybody to know that there was a lot of influential people that need to take part in me recognizing in my success and understanding that my success is a part of theirs as well. There are so many that I want to recognize, and first of all, all the coaches, Coach Hardin, Coach Hodges, Coach Crumpton, all the ones that are here today. Each one of you meant a lot as growing up as a kid that just couldn't wait for the day to be a McKinney Lion, put on that gold hat and put on that blue M. Just want to say thank you to each one of you that were a part of my journey, part of my life as a coach. There are two individuals that, just like in everyone's life, especially other individuals that were able to come up here today, there are individuals that have a huge impact in their lives, and definitely two that had a tremendous impact on my life. And my dad mentioned earlier is Miss Vicki Cooper and Miss Marsha Crouch. A couple things I wanted to say to them is that Miss Vicki Cooper and Miss Cooper, just know that myself and my family will always call you Miss Cooper. But she was my pre-K, I guess about that age, 2.5 years old, 3 years old, 18 months old, whenever, all the way up through kindergarten, was my teacher at the school that I attended. And she had a huge impact in heading my direction of my life of going a different route and not going through the deaf schools and going through the public school education, public school system. Ms. Cooper, just want to say thank you, for the confidence that you gave me, and especially my parents, and especially my mom, in helping us with that transition from that deaf ed program into the mainstream. You have made a huge impact. You will forever, again, be ingrained into our family as well as myself, and I thank you. Ms. Crouch, Marsha was Ms. Crouch was, again, a teacher that I had going through high school, was an individual that wasn't an employee of McKinney ISD, was an employee of actually of Plano ISD. She was what you would call a liaison from the Plano ISD Deaf Ed program. And her job essentially was to interact with me, to make sure that I had the resources, that I had the things that I needed for me to be successful as I go through the regular curriculum of the high school education. And she was there for me. And without a doubt that, Ms. Crouch, that there were days that the conversations, that our interactions that we were able to have as a one-on-one that we talked about, and it was more just about learning. It was always about life. And I appreciate the time. And just so you know, she always hit on me to make sure that I kept reading books, and just so you know, I'm still reading books, I promise you that, okay? But again, Ms. Crouch, I can't thank you enough for what you, again, the confidence that you instilled, the help that you provided for me as I went through that age of my life, and my gratitude is extensive. Thank you. In our family, you can always hear, or you can always count on hearing, what is your last name, son? Or you could hear, hey, that blood is thicker than the water. It's been internally ingrained to me that there's nothing more important than family. Been so very blessed to have such a wonderful family, an extended family that I have a part of my life. Cindy, my sister, is just a thank you for being the nurturing, loving sister that you are and that you were. My brothers, Matt and John, you guys I looked up to daily. You guys, again, Dad said it earlier, the toughness and the competitiveness came from you two. Okay, and I looked up to you, and I appreciate you, and I love you. Be the hardest one here. Mom and Dad, through thick and thin, you've been there every step of the way. Through my ups and downs, your love has never wavered. Dad, you're an example of a man, and what a coach should be is what I always strive to be. If I can reach half of that, I'll know that I've been successful. Mom, you're special. Excuse me, sorry. I'm like my Uncle Don. He cries when he says the word love. And so I'm very tender-hearted in that way. Mom, you're special. Since birth, you believed that I could do something great, and you have definitely been there for every need. And I thank you. Now, Mom and Dad, my success is without a doubt your success, and I can't thank you enough. I've also been blessed, that you have such a wonderful wife, and Darby. We've just recently celebrated 16 years of marriage, and her support for what I do is unmatched. As far as followed in the same line, followed in the same dreams of what my dad is now myself as a head football coach and an athletic campus coordinator of the school where I'm at. I couldn't be any more proud, but to have a wife in Darby and the ways that she supports and what I do and the supporter that she is at every single game, at every single event, again, is unmatched. And babe, I love you. Thank you. You are my rock. Got 3 loving children, great children. Jack is my oldest, and I've got Sadie and Trey, such beautiful children. God has blessed us deeply and has given us 3 beautiful people. Again, thank you to the athletic department and the Hall of Honor committee for this tremendous honor, for having me a part of this class, and especially as well as the committee and the athletic department, as well as the McKinney ISD. It's a tremendous honor, and I'm forever grateful. Thank you.
Our final presenter was a captain of a team that had one of those special seasons that any athlete or coach dreams about. Representing the 2006 Class 4A girls soccer state champion team from McKinney North High School, Erin McKenna.
Hey, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'm representing about 22 other people that aren't here today. 10 years later, we're scattered all over the country. We're all married, have kids, and our coaches are still coaching, so they're at tournaments today. So in 2006, we started the season with a memory of defeat. We had lost the previous regional championship to McKinney High School, actually, and it was a painful game. There were a lot of tears. So we set the goal that next season that's what we wanted to accomplish. We wanted to win that state championship. And that team was special. We were very close on and off the field. And we had the backing of our school and the community, which was great. We went undefeated that season. It was wonderful. It's one of my best memories of my life, that state championship. And with the girls that I'm still very close friends with, I know it's some of their best memories as well. One of the great things about it was remembering back, we're such a big football and baseball community, how much that female sport was embraced that year. We had a pep rally for us. We had pink out days for us. We did all this special stuff, and that's thanks to Coach Pratt, too, at the time, really pushing that girls' soccer. So that was wonderful. So thank you for this award. It means a lot to all of us. I've got lots of calls and texts from all the girls. They're giving their thanks as well, especially, and thank you to Jimmy Langford, who's not here, our coach, that really carried us that year and let us lead our team, but also kind of guiding us through the way. So thank you.